the top 10 list of 2014. This list shall be movies. Without further ado, let's begin. Number 10, X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, as you can see, I am a huge fan of all things Marvel. It is my number one nerd obsession. But the X-Men series has always been at my lower end of things Marvel, and especially the films as well. They're not bad movies, and I do love Wolverine, and at least in the comic books, I love Deadpool. But overall, I've never really been a huge fan of the overall X-Men universe. Jean Grey, Cyclops, Professor X, they never interest me as much as some of the other characters in the Marvel universe. But I still enjoy it. I still love pretty much anything superhero. But I know a lot of people put the Bryan Singer X-Men movies near the top of their list of all things superhero movies. But I have never felt that. I felt they've always been overrated, and, well, I feel this one is as well. But it's still a good time and worthy to be on my top 10 list, but just not at the top of the list like a lot of people would put it. Now, the parts, Quicksilver was an awesome part of the movie, and I only hope that Age of Ultron and Joss Whedon's portrayal of the character will match it as far as that character goes. But, yeah, it was still a good time. Number 9, Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer, starring Captain America's own Chris Evans. Now, if you haven't heard of this movie, I wouldn't fault you. It didn't get the biggest release in theaters, but now it is on Netflix, so if you want to check it out, it's there for you to try it out. And I don't know if you like post-apocalyptic films, the end of the world and what's left of humanity trying to survive, then I recommend it. Has great acting job by Chris Evans, as always. Ed Harris is in it. There's great action, some really good dark humor if you're into that kind of thing. But I enjoyed it, and if you have Netflix, it's definitely a lot worse ways to waste 2 hours on there. Number 9, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I'm probably lose a lot of geek cred by putting X-Men below Spider-Man, especially since a lot of people gave a lot of hate to this film. Unjustly, in my opinion. I've heard people compare it to Batman and Robin and the worst of the genre, which I do not see. It's definitely not as good as it could have been. The stuff with the Green Goblin was completely rushed, and the stuff with Gwen Stacy I thought could have been probably saved for the third film in the series, but overall, it's still a fun movie, to be sure. Andrew Garfield's great in the role as Peter Parker, and if the rumors of Marvel getting Spider-Man back do come true, I do hope that they keep him as the character. But it did have, even with some of its flaws with the pacing and some of the humor, I still loved it. I even thought, what's his name? The guy who played Jamie Foxx did a good job as Electro. I thought he was a very good villain. And of course, Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy was great, and their chemistry together. And of course, the action is awesome, which you can only expect from a Marvel film. And yeah, I liked it, even though I know a lot of people didn't. My list. Number 7, Godzilla. Now, Godzilla, even though it isn't at number 7, my top 10 films of the year, is kind of also one of my most disappointing films of the year. As big a fan as I am of the series, and giant monsters in general, King Kong's my favorite movie of all time, and I've collected all the Godzilla movies, all 29 of them from Japan, and even the Matthew Broderick one from the 90s. I just love giant monsters in general, so this movie should easily been in my top 5, if not my number 1, just by the fact that it's a giant monster movie, and there's not that many of them. But, unfortunately, it's a little bit lower than it should be, mainly due to the fact that Godzilla just isn't in the film that much. When he is in the film, he's awesome. The special effects are great. They do a great job of representing what original Godzilla should be like. He's an unstoppable force of destruction. He's got his fire breath and everything. So it's definitely a lot better than the Matthew Broderick film in that comparison. But he just isn't in the film enough, and you're just have to watch, boring characters that not that the story's okay, but you're just really waiting for Godzilla. The movie's called Godzilla, and I think I read he's only in the movie 8 minutes long, and then it's just, it's still good. When he is there, it is awesome. They do a perfect job of Godzilla and action scenes with him and everything. So I do have hopes for the sequel. It's supposed to come out in 2018, which hopefully they'll get over the whole, oh, we're keeping him in shadows and secret to make the suspense or whatever. I don't necessarily need to be Pacific Rim where it's just non-stop, but there needs to be more than 8 minutes of Godzilla in a 2-hour film called Godzilla. But still, what they got, they did perfectly, so just give me more of that in the sequel, and that could probably easily be in my top films of next year. Number 6, The Guest. The Guest is one Snowpiercer might have heard of. Probably pretty good chance you're a Snowpiercer, but Guest, that's another thing entirely. It didn't get a theatrical release that I'm aware of, and it just came out on DVD. It's on Netflix or anything, but I definitely recommend you go check it out. Go rent it or whatever. I guess you can't really rent it from stores anywhere now. Blockbuster's gone, but go to your streaming services or try to find it at Redbox or something. Oh, how should I say about it? It's kind of hard to describe it without ruining it. It's from the directors of You're Next, which, if you saw that movie, that's one of my favorites of last year as well. It has a great mix of comedy and horror that you get from like Cabin in the Woods. If you like Cabin in the Woods, you'd love You're Next. And I would say pretty much the same about The Guest, without giving away too much. If You're Next was a mixture of The Stranger and Home Alone, I'd say The Guest was a mixture of The Stepfather, Terminator, and Halloween. The original Halloween, not the Rob Zombie version, of course. But if you like any of those 3 movies I just mentioned, I definitely recommend you watch The Guest. It has a great soundtrack as well. It'll probably be, but yeah. Number 5, John Wick. Keanu Reeves' assassin film that came out earlier this year. It's not the most original premise. An assassin wanting to get revenge and killing a bunch of mobsters. But it's the way that it's executed is what makes it really stand out. The action scenes are some of the most innovative and cool I've ever seen. And of course, Keanu Reeves is always great as the badass action star. So I definitely recommend if you're in the mood for a good mindless action film. And as an animal lover, even though most action revenge movies are about, you're getting revenge on your wife, revenge for your wife or your children or whatever, but this one he's going for revenge on his puppy, so it definitely tugged on my heartstrings. You probably heard my dog whining a second ago because I wasn't paying attention to him because I'm doing this video, but I promise I'll be back to spoiling him after I'm done with this. Number 4, The Edge of Tomorrow. Live, Die, Repeat, or whatever they're calling on Blu-ray. That whole thing was stupid. But yeah, Edge of Tomorrow starring Tom Cruise. I know a lot of people hate Tom Cruise for his whole Scientology thing and all that, but I'm not one to really judge based on their personal life. I don't really care about the star's personal life. I just care if they make good movies. And Edge of Tomorrow is a very good movie. It's an action version of Groundhog's Day. That's pretty much action sci-fi version of Groundhog's Day. That's pretty much all you should need to know that's an awesome time. They played up the repeating awesome. It's like, playing a video game or watching someone play a video game. Just gets killed and it goes right back, kills, go right back, kills, go right back. It's got great action, great humor. Emily Blunt is in it, looking beautiful as ever. So yes, definitely recommend seeing Age of Tomorrow. Didn't do too well in theaters. Hopefully Blu-ray will help it out, Blu-ray, digital. Number 3, The Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes, the movie that no one cared about, or heck, no one even heard about it a year ago today. And if they had heard of it, if I told you the premise, or you heard the premise of involving a talking raccoon and tree, you would laugh it off. Most people thought it might be Marvel's first huge failure, but now it's everyone's favorite movie. It's one of the biggest films of 2014. I think it might got a little bit too high of praise from some people. Some people saying it's just Marvel's best film yet, which I wouldn't go that far. It's never nowhere near as good as the Avengers or some of the other films, including one that's a little bit higher in my list. But it's still a very good time. A lot of great humor from Bradley Cooper and Chris Pratt and everyone else involved. And the action's good. The CGI on Groot and Rocket Raccoon is great. It's a very good time. Number 10, Dawn of the Planet Apes. I've always been a huge fan of the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes series, all the way back to the 60s, Charlton Heston and Ronnie McDowell. And then there was a Tim Burton one in 2001, Mark Wahlberg, which was okay, but yeah, not nearly as good. Then they brought it back with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and that was an excellent film with James Franco and Andy Serkis, and this continues the series on its back to its path of greatness from back in the day. It has great action. The CGI on the apes is flawless. You almost forget you're watching CGI apes at some points. Just think they found real talking apes and they filmed them. But yes, story, very good. It's not your typical story. It's got some twists and turns and everything. It's not the typical, oh, here's the bad guy, here's the good guy. You got both sides. You have good guys and bad guys in both sides. So it's more true to real life. Not everyone's all evil on one side, not everyone's all good. But yeah, the action's great. The villain is a very good villain. Yeah. Number 1. Drum roll. Now you can probably have a pretty good guess of what my number 1 film would be based on my love of all things Marvel, and what one film is not on this list so far of the 4 films that were released from Marvel in 2014. Yep, it's the Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now this film, as a huge fan of the Avengers, Avengers is definitely my favorite comic book film. But I have to say this one's this close to taking it down. This close. I mean, the action is amazing. They do a great job of taking Captain America, which in his solo film and the Avengers, they didn't do too great of a job of presenting him as a badass. He was kind of, definitely in Avengers, he was put down with the Hawkeyes and the Black Widows of the world, were just being kind of, you'll be there for the crowd support, make sure civilians don't get killed, while Hulk and Thor and Iron Man go actually take down the big giant monsters and everything. But this one definitely puts him up there with any other superhero and just showing how awesome he can be with his shield and his super strength and everything. And just beyond that, what I really love is just the story. The Winter Soldier himself is really cool villain. He doesn't have a lot of lines or anything, but it's just the menace of him being on screen. It's like the Terminator. He's just unstoppable. Whenever he's on the screen, or Nemesis, if you ever play the Resident Evil games, he's unstoppable, and your characters are in trouble whenever you see him. People are going to die. So, and then the story with all its twists and turns and everything was really good. And as a big fan of Marvel Studios in general, and a watcher of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I loved how it intertwined with that show, and that made even its quality of this film went on to the S.H.I.E.L.D. and made S.H.I.E.L.D. a lot better after it. So it overall just improved the entire Marvel Universe in general. And I can't wait to see what the Russo brothers, the directors of Winter Soldier, do with the next Captain America Civil War. Now, who would have thought that the directors of You, Me, and Dupree would go on to be some of the best comic book movie directors of all time. Now, to end the list, I shall also mention my most disappointing film of last year, and that is Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. I would consider the original Sin City definitely in my top 10 films of all time, but this one just fell flat. Just like the last 2 or 3 Robert Rodriguez films, I think that man might need to take a break. I love his career, but I don't know, something's something's wrong and he needs to reevaluate what